Hi, I want to make a video about the psychic world and the levels of the soul, and I'm going to call this video Hassan, Ghost of Hassan, and yet higher selves, because I believe, like most Sufis do, that we are composed of many spirits, and the human body is simply a vessel, or the last spirit that's interacting with the material world. And well, I have a lot of experience experiencing my own soul, my own higher self, but I have very limited experiences seeing or experiencing the even greatest selves than the soul. Well, Jesus talks about it. In Christianity, they have the concept of Trinity, the Son, the Father, and the Holy Ghost. I don't think it's just the Holy Ghost as a singular. There's not just three. I think it's like the word is Holy Ghosts, like plural. In the Sufi school, one of the teachers, Mr. Kasavi, said that between man and God there is 70,000 layers of light and darkness. And then he went on to say that each layer, each higher level, is like millions of times more enlightened than previous levels. And I think that what many psychics experience, and they call it the spirit guides, or is not really somebody else's spirit or a teacher that used to live or whatever. Is more their own higher self that's presenting itself to them. But the issue is that the soul, for example, when I'm having an astral projection dream, the soul is very innocent, and he's not he or she is not swayed by the material world concerns or greed or desire, because he's not made of this material world. It's more an abstract entity. And then the even higher selves, they feel alien and totally out of relationship, because they are similar to the soul. They are very innocent, and they are abstract entities. They are not into the concerns of the daily life, or the needs of the body. They are more a being that's in tune with the universe. And when one has an experience with these beings, it feels like they have come from somewhere else, but they haven't. They are part and parcel of your own life. And in the Islamic tradition, they talk about Tawhid, which is unity. Even though they manifest in different forms or shapes, or some formless, they're all the same. They're all part of the same package, but the higher levels of. I think that many astral projection dreams, many psychic dream experiences, are the works of the soul itself. There's a poem by the Sufi master. It goes like this: In همه سحر و فسون, all this magic and bewitchment is the works of that companion, which is the works of my soul. وای اگر همدمم دم ز جدایی زند. And that will be a sorry day when this companion says, "Hey, I'm tired of this. I want to move on." So basically, our lives in the physical world is a journey that the soul undertakes, and then it experiences. Is the Sufis, they use the word Dawran, which means like a period, and it's like a tour of duty that the higher self wants to go through the material world, wants to see the trial and tribulations and sufferings, and overcome it, and realize itself. It's basically a trial for the soul to realize its own essence, its own value, regardless of what happens to it in the material world. It's like transcending. It's like the soul wants to come in, even if the conditions are very bad. It wants to know that it can transcend, and the better that it has done that, I guess it gets more brownie points. But or the universe wants to experience itself in these circumstances, like in a personal life, somebody's personal life. Anyhow, I was watching a YouTube video that had to do with the influence of consciousness on the universe, on the material world, and the the physicists are beating the crap out of this concept and pursuing it to almost is ad infinitum, like because it is the experiment, a double slit that allows the consciousness to show itself up in direct interaction with the material world. And in one of these latest videos, some scientists were saying that if a collection of people, or the consciousness of some individuals, even if they are not in the room, in the internet, they're far away, it can influence the double slit experiment, where the photon which slit the photon travels in. So it can skew the result of a totally physical experiment, and simply by thinking about the double slit experiment. That's a very weird result, and many physicists, they know that this is very odd, and they keep pursuing this experiment to its total conclusion. But I mean, the latest results show that yes, the consciousness of individual can influence the physical world or the universe. And in my previous videos, I said that you know, I was talking about the consciousness, artificial intelligence systems like machine intelligence, and the differences. So there is a very distinct difference, because they did that experiment, double slit experiment, and they had artificial constructs like robots or programs that were interacting with in the double slit experiment, and they were not influencing the result of the experiment. Or when people thought about the double slit experiment and which slit the photon went through, it did influence. So there is a difference between consciousness of a living being and machine intelligence, or whatever intelligence that one may create. So in fact, there is a good bone to these ideas I'm presenting to you, that we humans are made of the same stuff the universe is made of, and our consciousness is in interaction with this universal consciousness, universal mind. And in the Islamic tradition, Quran talks about Mi'raj, which means like the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven, and in the story, the soul is represented by I think in the Islamic tradition by the horse that takes the Prophet to higher realms, and I should read this story again. I think it is angel, what was the well, the Prophet Muhammad had this experience in the cave. The angel Gabriel came to him, and in the Mi'raj experience, angel Gabriel took Prophet Muhammad to higher realms, and then there comes a point that even the angel tells him, I cannot go any further because if I go there, I will totally burn and disappear. So he had to travel to higher selves on his own. This concept of Trinity, it totally is in Islamic tradition. I mean, Muslims, they try to hide it, or talk about it in convoluted terms, but it's there. It shows up in 2-3 places in the Quran and in Prophet Muhammad's experience. Well, what I'm saying is that, well, I'm no Prophet Muhammad, but I'm a psychic, and my experience tells me that, hey, there is a soul of Hassan, and this is not the end, that there is a yet higher realms, that there are higher souls, and they're all my own self. They're not something different, or they didn't come from some ancient dead mystic. They're not Set or this or that. They're simply me, but I'm unable to recognize some of them, or when I experience them, they feel alien because of my limited number of experiences. And well, in the book by the Sufi master, as Janin tells Janan, from Janin means like infant. Janan means paradise, which means from one complete Doron. Doron means period. Like when you're born, you go through life in the physical world, and Janan means paradise, which is the very end result, when the soul has discovered itself. It's in this paradise. So the name of the book is very meaningful. If you are a Sufi and you're looking at the name, the whole name is saying to you, this is covering the spiritual experiences from infancy all the way to the physical body, death, and then beyond. And it's fantastic. I think that there is very few philosophers, and you pretty much have to go straight to Bible or to Quran, to the experiences of Prophet Muhammad or Imam Ali, to just get a clue of some of these events. But at the moment of death of the physical body, the soul separates, and then the Sufis say that the veils have fallen. Like when the soul is in the physical body, it sees itself as the physical body and the world around it. I mean, the soul of an ordinary person who's not psychic or medium, it experiences the world, the physical world, and it influences the soul. It makes impression on the soul. But when the physical body dies, the soul is left alone, and then it realizes that, hey, all that stuff was crap. There's no such thing, and now I'm stuck with all these experiences and impressions that have no value value or whatsoever in in the remaining of the journey. These things they are worthless, but hey, I'm stuck with them. Many souls they suffer in this is the purgatory and hell, which means they have all these things that they are replaying of the material world. They're totally useless. And they know it, but they don't know how to get out of it. Well, I have had some experiences that point in this direction, and well, the Islamic tradition it talks about these things. Imam Ali says that the, the world is Mazrat al-Akhirah, which means the farmhouse, and Akhirah means your destiny. Like when you're in the material world, you should practice charity, kindness, and live a righteous life, and then these will make a good impression on your soul, because then when the physical body dies, the soul has to go and knows that it did right in its journey up to this moment, and doesn't have to be sorry, or doesn't have misgivings, or doesn't have baggage that it has to carry on with it, and it can move on to higher realms. But some psychics, they don't have to physically die to experience the higher self. I experience it in many forms, in meditation, or in my astral journey, in dreams, or I see my soul, or I also experience a soul of other people who have died. I'm a lot more aware. Hey, what happened? A lot of experiences that happen to the soul, they are not tied to the material world. They don't need the material world. They are simply experiences that the soul itself is experiencing. What I usually experience is I see my higher self, my soul, as the best thing that I could look like. You know, you usually look like the soul usually looks like a young man, very very aloof, or if he wants to present himself, or the hamdam or soul or companion wants to show itself to someone, to a psychic like me, I see he looks fantastic. When I see this, my soul, it gives me a feeling of serenity. Because when you see your own soul, you know that this is the real you, and your physical body will decay and die, but this is really will remain, and there is this feeling of love and serenity, you know, because I think the fear of death is the greatest fear the carnal body has, and the Sufi master went on to say that there is two deep desires in human beings. One is aramesh, which means serenity, peace, and baqa means like being alive for an eternity. So this is a beautiful gift that I have, that my own soul has given me the chance to experience it without having to physically die, and you know, experience all this other stuff. And when you have this experience, you also realize that a lot of things that happen or experiences in the material world, they're crap. They don't mean anything, and in the eventuality they won't amount to much. So what the Sufi master said, Sufi master Shah Master said that all these psychic experiences and phenomena are the works and the deeds of the soul. In همه سحر و فسون, all these magic and bewitchment are the works of that companion, which is like the soul. And I see some of them in myself. I have the gift of prophecy. I can experience, like a lot of the souls, they can experience the future and see this, hey, this is, and or I have the gift of clairvoyance. I can see far away or in the past, even as if a picture is unfolded. This is the soul that's connected to the universe and can show different part. It's just like a computer can access different part of its hard drive. Hey, this is what's going to happen, and the future is, hey, this is how it's going to play out. Then I have the gift of perceiving, like, say for example, you go in a historical place and there has been a war there. I can sense the energies of places, or I can sense the aura of individuals. All this stuff is not the works of the physical body. The only experience or talent that my physical body has is the smarts. It's like a very high IQ. I try to be able to analyze things mathematically and put the pieces together, and but I think that the human brain, it doesn't just employ just its own smarts, its own brain, and in fact we are connected to an extended mind, and all these tidbits of information come in and they do influence the direction of any analysis that might be taking place. This stuff is kind of complex, but many philosophers and now quantum physicists, they are very aware of these phenomena. They're not shy to talk about it. You can see that like 10, 20 years ago, many scientists would be like, I don't believe this stuff. They were mostly reductionists, but there is just so much evidence now in quantum physics that many, even good physicists, they're coming around and say, hey, there is something to this. We need to look at it. Well, I was watching another video. The scientist, he was saying that the consciousness itself is the primary thing, and the universe is really consciousness, and humans are mimicking this universal consciousness. This is a very interesting subject. The Sufi school, they talk about a person as it's a drop of water, and the universe is like an ocean. So even though we possess just a tiny fraction of this universal consciousness, but it still is a drop of water. It is not an ocean, but in that water, it possesses all the qualities of all the universe, all the I have some psychic talent. There is one that I pretty much don't have any of, or very little of, and that's a gift of healing that Jesus possessed. It's like I'm more like I know I'm more like a medium, more in tune with death and the practice of necromancy, and this. Well, I know I have some influence with like healing in the hands. If I massage my part of my body or my shoulders, I feel there is energies going there. I know other psychics, they talk about quantum touch, or but I don't use this. I'm not advertising for it either, because I'm very very sexual person, and I like women, and it's like I don't want a part of me is interfering with another aspect of me. The quantum touch is more like um, is a psychic phenomena, is a healing, but I'm not in that regard. Most women they get the clue pretty fast, and they give me a warning. So yeah, all these psychic experiences or gifts of healing or prophecy or understanding or perceiving or clairvoyance or clairaudience, they are the works of the soul and or the awakening of the soul. When the soul awakens in someone who is not prepared, it doesn't have, he or she doesn't have a lot of experience with prayer or doesn't have a mental background to understand what is happening to her, then it becomes like a mental disease. Well, I spent some time in county jail, and it's because me and my ex-wife were fighting a lot, and the highest form of punishment to prisoners is to be taken into solitary confinement, because in the solitary confinement the interaction or relations with the outside world pretty much dies down, and then a person is confronted with his or her higher self. And oh my God, this is a horrible experience, because then the soul will start talking to this person, and it feels to them like they're going nuts, they're going berserk. They hear things, they see dead relatives. It's quite unpleasant to somebody who's not familiar. Hey, this is happening. You know, this is not something wrong. This is just a part of your life. You're experiencing yourself. You're experiencing the higher realms. So, but hey, some people were brought up in a certain way, and some of these beliefs, even though they are false, they have a very strong hold on the individual. They have to go through some suffering to realize that, hey, that all that stuff is fib. There's no such thing. The reality is really what the soul experiences or wants. And in the Roman law, the Romans had this concept of the guilty mind, which means, and also this shows up in the Islamic Sharia law. This is that when somebody commits a crime, it starts in their soul. They became moyal, which means, like, say you have something that's straight up standing on its own self. Moyal means something that has it's fallen to one side or another, and also have a very negative connotation, which means like somebody is perverted in their soul. They became extremely infatuated with gold or money, extreme infatuation with some sexual practices. So moral, this concept in Sharia and also in the Roman law of a guilty mens rea, guilty conscience, is very similar to what the quantum physics says, that hey, your soul, your consciousness has an effect on the physical world. So in the Muslim tradition, they say that the God doesn't punish individuals for the actual sin like they did in the physical world, but he will punish their soul for becoming moral, becoming infatuated with something that is not them. The concept shows up in several places. It's not hard. In fact, many philosophers and some judges too, they talk about this concept. And now the physics says, hey, there is an influence. I think that when I have problems, I do believe in the power of prayer and asking God to work things out for me, because I don't see how I can get out of messes that came up. Like I do pray for the ends of wars. I do especially pray for empires to end, the fall apart. I don't agree with one country, having military influence on other countries. I think humanity needs to let its parts live and rest and grow on its own. We don't need this infighting, but also prayer works in personal life or in improvement in one area that I pray and my prayers don't come true. I get a lot of women, nice looking women, and I wonder why in the Islamic tradition God has permitted men to have more than one wife. I mean, so we are flawed, okay? And I'm sorry. Where was I with this discussion? Yes, we were talking about consciousness, and prayer works. Consciousness can influence the world, and I had very limited experience with the higher selves, even more higher than the soul. But in some of the dreams, the the soul lose its etheric form, because the etheric body still has form and becomes just like an essence, just like you know you're there, you're experiencing yourself, but you really don't need to have a replica of your head or legs, because there is no legs or head or hands in this etheric world, and the soul realizes that after a while, and it falls apart or it dies. But the Sufi master says that there is successive death, as in plural death, after the physical body dies. So there is a practice that the Muslims, they remember somebody who has died or been killed in their arba'in. Arba'in is the Arabic word, means in the 40 days later they remember him and set up lights for him, because within that 40 days the soul knows that, hey, I've lost the physical body and I need to move on. Well, the Christian tradition, they talk about purgatory, and this concept relates to souls that have collected impressions, or they have infatuations with the physical world, that they have tough time getting rid of this and be able to move on. They love something or somebody in the physical domain just too much, and they have hard time letting go. So usually when I have experience for these souls, I pray for them so they can move on. This is a really important concept, moving on from these infatuations or experiences. I'll have some other videos on this topic, and they are kind of strange, because very few philosophers, they talk about this stuff. Sometimes you just have to go to Bible or New Testament, or straight to Quran or writings of Imam Ali or the Sufi masters. Most people, they miss this stuff. Thank you very much. Please subscribe. My stuff is research, and there are very few places you go and find this stuff in this totality. Thank you very much.